Push it in and it don't want to come back out again.
Well, listen, I've got this going, recording. I want to ask you something about your family genealogy. I'm pretty sure you know what genealogy is, right?
What?
Your family genealogy?
Yeah, that's the blood and
Right. Your history.
history.
You said, did you used to be a Jackson? Is that correct?
Um,
How did that?
my grandmother.
Your
My
grandmother.
mom's mom.
Your mother's mom. So would it be your
So
grandmother?
Be
Not your great grandmother,
great-
but your grandmother.
yeah, a grandmother.
Did you know her? Whenever you was a
I
young
knew
child?
My grandmother, yes, I knew her.
Okay. How old was you?
She was a Puckett then.
Because she'd got married.
Right. But
How old was you whenever she passed away?
how old was she?
Whenever she passed away.
She was 99.
She was 99, but how old was you? Was you a teenager by that time?
No, I was about in my 30s.
Oh, really?
I was still young.
Because she lived to be so old. Did she take care of herself?
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
Well, who was her father? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember his name, but her husband was named Bernie Puckett.
I know some Pucketts. There was a bunch of Pucketts over in Greenfield at one time.
Right.
I don't
That
know.
was probably my grandmother. That was that many years ago.
Well, no, your grandmother was a Jackson.
And
Your grandmother was a Jackson before she married a Puckett.
we were trying to put this together once before.
Well, was she raised up here in this area, in the Cydonia or the Hopin or Reeves area, in the Kenton area?
All the area around us.
Okay. So there's a good possibility that she could actually stem from some of my people, because on my great grandfather's side, which was Jeff Jackson, had you ever heard anybody called Cecil Jackson from down there Hopin? Cecil Jackson had an adopted son by the name of Jimmy Jackson. Cecil Jackson and Jeff Jackson was brothers, as well as two more other ones, but they stemmed off. Jeff Jackson had his family. Cecil, basically, that married Alice up in Chicago.
I know Tudor Jackson.
Cecil sounds
Donald
that
Jackson.
name.
Okay. Cecil.
Donald's dead.
All right.
Tudor's dead now too.
All right. Donald Jackson and Tudor Jackson. That's a different set of Jacksons. That ain't the same Jacksons that come from my side.
Yeah.
Because there was a set of Jacksons that come from Kenton too.
Yeah, they were.
In addition to your grandmother. Now, they may all be kin to each other, and probably somehow or another,
Way back.
probably mine was probably kin, because
Well, I knew that at Kenton.
Mamie Puckett originally was from Nashville.
from Nashville,
Jackson's out of Nashville.
but she married a Jackson.
Yeah.
Was
No,
she?
she was a Jackson. She married
And
Bernie
there
Puckett.
was a Siler.
That's right.
There was a Siler. Last name was Siler that lived up there on that hill across from where the.
So you're saying
elementary.
her grandmother, which would be your great grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
that she was raised up in the Nashville, Tennessee area, Davidson
Her
County?
family was from Nashville.
Okay. But where was she raised up at?
I think back over around Dyer. But family was from Nashville. Audrey knows a lot more than I do. I know they were all very musically inclined.
They're very good too.
Well, my father was musically inclined, and some of his people on the Davis side and the Jackson side was musically inclined. The part that I'm trying to make, which I'm documenting this, by the way, I'm recording this, is that, and I hate to use this type of terminology, but I only know how to talk is the way that I know how to talk. I don't know how to put the professional words into it. But somehow or another, my family.
But that I wouldn't worry about putting words of professional, because they might not understand what you're talking about.
They may not, but I'm gonna say it the way I feel like it ought to be said. I feel like that my family got knocked out of the saddle pertaining to political affairs because I've done a study on my people. Do you by chance know where Primitive Baptist Church is in between Mount P and Reeves? It's a little bitty old white church. If you don't know it, you'll never find it. You got to turn down the road right there where
it's a little church.
A little church down in there.
Right.
Now you have to know where it's at.
You got to know where it's at. But it's got some old cemetery in there with some of the graves that goes back, I guess, in the 1700s.
Yeah.
People that was born in the 1700s that actually fought in the Revolutionary War. And I know for a fact that some of my people fought not only in the Revolutionary War, but they also fought in the Civil War.
Oh yeah, I know ours.
Because we got stock that had migrated from North Carolina over here, that my dad claimed that we was kin somehow or another to Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, I've often wondered about that.
That stemmed off.
He had 22 kids.
That stemmed off from over in that area, from Davidson County, because they originally migrated, from New York, from Virginia, West Virginia, down through North Carolina, then over the hills through Tennessee, over to Middle Tennessee, and we're talking about people that come off the boat in the 16 and 1700s. Right. That migrated here.
Yeah, I've often wondered about Grandma Jackson because, coming from Nashville and Andrew Jackson.
They come up from the Mayflower.
Well, if you get to studying it, we actually migrated from somewhere over there in England.
Yeah, I know the Durans were English.
See, and on my dad's side was a Hobbs, and that's English.
It is.
It's English, and
well, I
think some of them were.
My great three greats grandfathers, which is going back 5 generations, right?
Yeah.
Whenever they come from North Carolina, was Masons. And the reason why I know this is because you can see it on the headstone of the Mason symbol.
Right.
Well, it takes a little bit to be a Mason. I mean,
yeah.
Not just
they don't accept anybody.
That's right. They just don't accept just any and everybody into their organization. So that told me right away, before my great grandfather, whenever I found out about him, that told me right away that they must have had some sort of either money or prestige or something with the community for him to ever be a Mason like that. Well, come to find out, Jeff Jackson, the one that used to run that limb store in between Sidonia Hop-In, and the way that the limb store got its reputation was because my grandfather worked for the state of Tennessee and basically got paid to go and have trials. I don't know if he was called a dudiator or something like that, because back then they really didn't have courthouses like they do now.
No, they usually had court in the bars.
And they didn't have things zoned out like this is Obion County and Weakley County and Dyer County and
Actually, this was all Weakley County. Way back.
Way back.
Way back. This was all Weakley County.
All right. Have you ever heard this? Davy Crockett?
He left here when he went to the Alamo.
Right, but have you ever heard that he actually went to Reelfoot Lake and helped to survey Reelfoot Lake before Reelfoot Lake become Reelfoot Lake, and then had to go back and resurvey it again after the earthquake hit?
That's possible.
Because he was here during the time whenever the earthquake hit here in Northwest Tennessee. He'd already come come back from
I know
East
he
Tennessee
used
and
to
Middle Tennessee.
Go down the old river in the canoe, and they go back down here in these bottoms, and that's the reason they call them Crockett Bottoms,
That's right.
because he used to hunt back there all the time.
That's right. Matter of fact, if you go right over here to Mason Hall, go to Trimble, and instead of going either to O'Brien or going to New Bern, go straight. Go like going to the bottoms, like going to the Mississippi
But
River.
wasn't David Crockett?
Did you know that there used to be communities back in there, thriving communities back in there, with post offices and schools and everything else back in there?
Ain't nothing but bottom now. Ain't nothing back there.
There's a few old stores still standing. A few old buildings are still standing.
Yeah.
I don't forgot the name.
Dead ends.
Seems like it was called Birmingham or something like
there
that.
is a
A
new
town
program.
way back
There
then.
is
I
a
know
new
you go back
program
that way.
that's coming on.
Well, I know that you can go all the way down.
I know you go to O'Brien, you go in and you go.
You know where the
glass.
flood? You know where the area that always floods right there. That
Yeah.
right there. All right. If you go through that floodwater plain and then turn right, that actually take you back over here to Reelfoot Lake. But now it's a snaky, crookedy.
Oh, yeah.
It's
it goes
way
all the way back.
It's way back in there. Have you ever heard of Cat's Corner?
Yeah.
Okay, Cat's Corner's
Still
back
there.
over there in that area where I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's back over close to the. I've been through it,
Have you?
and Cat's Corner, and there's another one.
Boy, there used to be some mean ones.
Strange.
There used to be
That,
some mean.
yeah, that little river towns.
Yes,
Little
Rivertown used to be some mean people. Make moonshine and shooting and killing going on and
Yeah.
all kinds of
Yeah, you
The
go
prostituting
other
and
day-
gambling and
the
stuff
other
going
day,
on.
We went up to the graveyard around here and looking at Grandma Puckett and Bernie, just checking them out where they were buried at.
Do y'all
That's-
have y'all
that's
ever
a-
been to that cemetery? What I'm talking about over there at Primitive Baptist Church? All right. Do you know where Bill Turner, that built that big levee, that built that big old pond over there, that basically turned it into a lake that the Coca-Cola man bought
Oh.
before you get to Reeves, right there on the right-hand side. It's a big lake, a body of water right there.
Yeah.
Bill Turner dug that and put that up.
Yeah, what you call it? It had the Blue Jean place built that. Now they couldn't even give it away.
Right. You talking about the place up there in Union City?
Yeah.
But the Coca-Cola man has bought that, and he's got a heck of a house right there, probably worth $3 or $4 million.
Oh yeah. Hey, they tried to give it to UTM. UTM didn't even want it.
Oh, the place over in city limits of
Union City.
Union
Yeah.
City. It's just a
And Garen is who built that.
yeah.
And yeah, after I think he died.
Well, the guy I'm talking about, I think his name is Griffin, if I'm not mistaken, that owns the Coca-Cola company over in Union City.
Oh,
I may be wrong about the
I
name,
had no
but he
idea.
also got a Coca-Cola company in Dyersburg too. He owns 2 Coca-Cola plants. He's wealthy, very wealthy. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, he put in some stock on one of the hotels that they're putting up down there by the Union City historical place over there.
I mean, out there by Discovery Park.
By
They're building-
Discovery Park.
Yeah, they're building a couple of motels out there.
Now I think the majority of their money come from that guy that sold a lot of furniture. What was his name?
Kirkland.
No, not Copeland.
Kirkland.
Kirkland. That's right, Mr.
That's who
Kirkland.
put a lot of
Whenever
that
he
money
died,
into
he
that.
put he wielded a lot of that money over there because
Oh,
he
yeah,
was worth
Discovery Park.
he
that
was
one
worth
of his
several
dreams.
million dollars.
Now that was his dream, a museum.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's been in the planning stages for 25 years before they ever done anything.
Oh, I'm sure of that. That's how slow Tennessee is. They just
Well,
don't
I mean, it was just this and that and getting things going. Just
Did you
got
know?
involved.
Did you know that whenever he was diagnosed to having cancer, the doctors gave him an option of whether or not he was going to do chemo or not,
Yeah.
and he turned it down.
Sometimes it's not worth it.
He turned it down. He said, "If God wants me to die that way, that'd be the way I die."
Yeah.
And of
And
course,
they
he
gave
wheeled everything
all that
over.
Kirkland Cancer Center in Jackson. He put the money out for that.
All right, getting back to my family. Yeah, he did. Getting back to my family. My family owned a great deal of property down there in Weakley County and O'Brien County. in Hop In and out towards Hop In, going back up towards Sidonia. He bought that store from a Ridgeway along about, I'm going to say probably along about 1903, 1905, something like that.
Yeah.
And of course he got to working for the state towards doing the hangings around here, because at that time,
But they called him a circuit judge.
he was a circuit judge at that time.
Yeah.
That was predominantly still practiced in this area.
Yeah.
Now over in New York and Chicago and other places,
They had courthouses.
they had courthouses, and they was also transfigurating their laws, but our laws did not fully get transfigurated until after World War I. Did you know that?
Yeah, if they
But-
decided they
but-
wanted to hang you, they'd hang you.
Before World War I, they did.
Yeah.
Before World War I, it was basically a wild, wild west over here.
Yeah.
In other words, 4 or 5 people get together and say, well, we think you deserve to die, and you died. They strung up a tree, and it didn't matter if you was white man or black man.
You didn't have that many black people around here.
You didn't have that many, but those that was around here, whenever they got caught doing something that they wasn't supposed to be doing, they paid the ultimate price for it.
Yes, they did.
Anyways, the point that I'm trying to make is this. Whenever the 1929 Depression hit, a lot of people say, well, it didn't affect the people out in the rural areas, the country areas. Oh, yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yes, it did affect them. Because a lot of farms got taken by the government during that period. Whenever you can't make your tax base,
Yeah.
after 2 years, guess what happens to your property? They put it up on the auction block.
Yeah.
Well, that's what was going on around here during that time, from 1929 up until long about, I guess, when everybody started getting back on their feet, long about 1936 around here, because my grandmother and grandfather actually had to move from this area and go up to Illinois to feed their family.
Yeah.
Because there was jobs up there. There was money to be made up there.
Mm-hmm.
And they stayed up there for about 7-8 years. And then whenever they saved a lot of their money, they wound up coming back to Tennessee. And then they bought a piece of ground, about 85 acres. And the way I understand it, basically paid cash for it.
Yeah.
Of course, you figure at that time, my God, you could buy an acre of ground for probably $14 or $15 an acre.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people went up there and worked and came back down here and bought little pieces of land and paid cash for them.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Grandma and Granddaddy did.
But the point that I'm trying to
And they
make
bought
is
dairy
this,
farm.
getting back to my original statement, that I feel like that I got knocked out of the saddle pertaining to the political arena, in which I really don't want to have nothing to do with politics to begin with, regardless whether I want to go to school and become a lawyer or a judge or run for city mayor or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to play a part in that. And the reason why I don't is because my grandfather, watching what went on not only in the South, but went up to Chicago during that time after the 1929 Depression, whenever all the Al Capone stuff was going on and the machine gun, Valentine's murders and all the rootlessness that was going on at that time up in Chicago. I mean, it was just
Oh, yeah, syndicate.
a syndicate stuff. I mean, just
Yeah.
one person
Territories.
territories. I guess whenever he come back home, rather than him picking up the occupation that his father was in, which was a political occupation, he decided to be a farmer.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the branch got broken on my stem
Yeah.
towards becoming politically known. But now on another stem, there was 4 brothers
Yeah.
at that time. I think there was 2 girls too. Wound up venturing out, and the next thing you know, there's a TBI agent up there by the name of Jeff Jackson. That's basically my distant, I guess, 4th or 5th cousin. Do you know Jeff Jackson over in Union City that works for the
Yeah.
okay? He goes to church.
He used to be a probation officer.
Yeah,
He used to be Tom's probation officer.
that's right. All right. He
He left for another job.
he got his foot in the door, and now he's basically with the feds,
Yeah.
the state boys. Well, he goes to church up there at Church of Christ, right? Me and him knows one another. He's done a background check on me. He knows all about stuff that I've been involved in towards the sword and what went on out in Oklahoma and stuff. He knows pretty much about my background. But I've questioned him about challenging some of these people around here pertaining to the corruption that goes on in Tennessee around here locally. He won't touch it. He's scared of them. He will not go up against the political parties in this area towards running for office himself.
Well, hey, don't you know we got mafia around here? A lot of it, more than you know.
That's what I'm saying. It's the mob.
The mob.
And they're doing stuff basically illegal, but they call themselves doing it legally. But if the truth be known, if you ever go up against them, they can literally make your life miserable. And I guess that's what they're trying to do to me by bringing all this hardship into my life and not representing us properly over there with me and my younger brother towards causing us to be railroaded by the community over in Hopin. And I still think that the Wiccans over there had a part to do with it, because usually anybody that's associated with a devil worshiping bunch has some sort of stamina or some sort of prestige or some sort of money pertaining to being involved in such crap as that. If the truth be known, we probably got some high society people right here that we think are good, honest, clean, godly people that are probably associated with groups like that.
I can tell you from what I've heard, not seen, they go over here to the landfill, Barker Brothers.
Parker's Crossroads?
Barker Brothers.
Barker's Brothers.
Barker Brothers. Garbage. The landfill over there, they said they were to dig in there. That was owned by the mafia. So there ain't no telling how many bodies were buried in that landfill. Right back over here.
Well, I was told.
They use
I
it for
don't
dumping
know,
ground. They use it for dumping grounds.
Yeah.
Well, I was told in 1900s or the 20th century, getting into the 21st century down there in Hopin, that they was also rootless, and there ain't no telling how many people
disappeared out there in them swamps.
disappeared either in the swamps or disappeared out there in O'Brien River.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
it was,
I've heard that.
and
I've
it was,
heard that.
and it was probably that way pretty much. So anywhere around here where you had a body of water or alligators, or if you was down in the New Orleans area or whatever,
Yep. Disappeared in the swamp.
or just disappear.
Yeah. Yep. Never to be seen again.
Mm-hmm.
Alligator got him.
Something.
Yeah, I've heard about those stories about the Hopin. A lot of bodies disappeared back there in that swamp and in that river.
Uh-huh. Back whenever Dan Simmons used to own a beer joint down there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
I heard J.B. Simmons, his brother, talk about it.
Uh-huh.
Which J.B.'s dead,
Right.
He's buried up there at Alamo. That
Right.
was Aunt Edna's husband.
I think J.B. was J.B.
Dan's
Simmons was Dan's brother.
Yeah. They were brothers.
Yeah. Yeah, they was brothers.
He was Dan's older brother. He
And
drank himself to death.
and then of course Ed Simmons was kin to him too. I don't know if he was brothers or not, but he was kin to him some way or another.
I think they were cousins.
But like we've talked about before, back then in those days, it was almost like a Wild Wild West show around here, wasn't it? And I think the reason why is because we didn't have near the communication skills of like they do today. I think today, because of the internet and telephone,
We didn't have no law.
well, we didn't have no communications back then. They was still basically living in the dark ages.
You only knew
Do what they
was
wanted
around
to
you.
do.
I mean,
In your little community.
whenever, that's right. Whenever we moved down from Chicago and started living in Tennessee, we took a back seat to living in Chicago, because in Chicago we was already getting every major network off the TV system that you could think of.
Yeah.
Free TV
A
network.
lot of mafia on there.
Well, I'm sure it was, but the fact of the matter is we was socially connected with the things that was going on in Chicago while we was living in Chicago. Whenever we come down here to Tennessee, the first thing we had to do was go from a color TV back to a black and white.
Mafia blow your head off.
And we had to maintain the black and white TV for about probably 7-8 years before they finally upgraded around here to the point that you could have color TV because you had to have an aerial antenna and you had to get up there and turn the antenna. Yeah.
We used to have it run outside the window.
Right.
And we'd sit in the window, look at TV, and turn the antenna just to pick up a signal.
Right.
You turn it south, go to Memphis, and you'd pick up Paducah.
We could get
Jackson.
7, 12, 6, and 11 sometimes.
Yeah.
Out of Cape Girardeau.
Yeah.
Was our standard cable,
Yeah.
was our standard TV set around here for years and years and years.
We watched Popeye.
I used to wait on the mafia out of Chicago
You did.
Oh,
when I
yeah.
was working.
Customers.
Oh, yeah. I had to save them a table every day.
Had you ever met Al Capone or any Al Capone's people?
These people that was probably knew them, but the real ones, they stayed downtown all the time, and there's a lot of times there were buildings that were houses that were built under the ground and nobody could get to them, and what they would do, they would come out to the country where we had the restaurants, nice little restaurants, and they would have meetings, and I would have to save a table for them.
Would you have to make a pledge in case you overheard anything, not to repeat anything you heard?
That's right.
You don't listen.
I just had to keep my mouth shut and don't say nothing if you see somebody, and that's it. You don't,
Did you ever see anybody get knocked off in there?
not in there. But I've seen a building got burnt down.
Or hear shots in the back alleyway, knowing that it probably was somebody getting
Because they get paid
stiffed. I could only imagine what it's
they
like now in
collect-
some of
they
those areas
collect
up there in
money.
Chicago. My God, they claim now that children, 10, 11, 12-year-old
They want
kids
money
now.
because they want
are-
money in their pockets because people were selling booze.
Right. Booze was the big thing back then.
Yeah, it was illegal.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
Prohibition, they brought it back in.
prohibition hit. When did that prohibition hit? Along about in the 30s, right?
20s.
Was it the
When they
20s?
come in, they wanted their table. They were my customers, so I made sure that that table nobody sat there. And
And they probably
come
paid
in
you
and
handsomely. They probably paid you handsomely in tips to take care of them, didn't they?
I just said thank you and kept
There
my
was probably
mouth shut.
nights you
shut.
probably walked away with $300 or $400 tips that night, huh?
I walked away with a lot of it, and you don't smile at them, you don't talk to them,
Don't make no eye contact.
don't make no eye contact, nothing, anything.
You act like it's just you don't hear nothing.
You don't hear nothing.
See no evil, hear no evil.
That's right.
Because if they ever thought that you was against them,
That's
if
right.
they ever thought that
The
you was
only thing-
against them and you was becoming some sort of a snitch
And
or
then
some sort of
I'd be
a
gone.
If you heard something you shouldn't have.
heard something that you shouldn't have, next thing you know, they'd have put out a hit on you.
And the other thing I would say to them, thank you very much. That's
Well,
it.
did you know my uncle, Charlie? Did you know that he got busted up there in Chicago? Actually got busted right here in Kenton
Yeah,
because
stolen cars.
because working for stolen cars
He had stolen cars out there on the ring place.
on Billy Holloman's place.
He had some out there they caught him with.
Billy Hobbs.
Billy Holloman.
No. Out there when he was living in that old trailer behind Lucille.
Yeah. Yes.
Lucille and
Bill
Ring.
Ring. I mean,
Jim
Ring. Lily Ring.
Lily Ring.
He had
Yeah.
several of them out there hid away.
Yeah, he had their little out there and they busted him for stolen cars out there. They were repainting them.
Uh-huh.
He had a plastic, he made a shell, made plastic around.
A temporary body shop or a
and
temporary paint shop.
They were body. They were spraying, painting,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and redoing stolen cars.
What he was doing, he was taking them from Chicago down to Atlanta, and I think at the time in the 70s, paying him $2,000 a car, which at that time was big money. And whenever he got to Atlanta, he had the $2,000 and an airplane ticket. That way he could get on an airplane and go right back to Chicago. And he had a front towards acting like that he was doing body work up in Chicago, and the whole time, man, he was driving a brand new Cadillac or a brand new Lincoln Continental almost every month.
Oh yeah, he had the white Lincoln Continental.
Well, what got him busted is that he pulled up over there at Scotty Whitworth's pool. You remember his pool room that he had, Scotty Whitworth?
Scotty didn't have the pool room.
Yeah, he did.
He had the bar.
No,
I mean
Scott.
the dairy bar.
No, he had the dairy bar, but
Cody.
No, Scotty had that for a while.
Bill Cody run the pool room.
But Scotty run it for a while too.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if Scotty owned it.
Scotty didn't own it. No,
He may not own it, but he was running it.
he owned the dairy bar along with
Yes, he did own the dairy bar.
along with his wife.
Right, and
Wanda.
I think his wife Wanda is what hurt his
She's
business.
the one that died in there.
Well, died in there.
Yeah, they had a little fire. She died of smoke inhalation.
Died inside the.
Dairy bar. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. Something about she died of smoke inhalation, and that's when he ended up. See, they were first cousins. They got married, and they had that girl that was not right.
Well, yeah.
Too closely related.
Wasn't all that.
But anyways, Charlie, my uncle, pulled up there going to play pool. He had pool sticks at that time worth $5,000 pool sticks. Had all kinds of rubies and diamonds and sapphires and stuff in it.
They had money.
Yeah, had money to throw away. Anyways, he was in there playing pool for $100 a ball, playing 9-ball. And I don't forgot what cop it was. Do you remember the cop that used to be worked in Kenton for years and
Rose
years?
Mullins.
Yep. They seen that car, and for some reason they had a feeling of calling the plate in, and whenever they called the plate in, guess what? The plate didn't match the car.
Right.
And they made a couple of telephone calls, and they got the state boys from Union City to come down, and the next thing you know, they threw handcuffs on him because there was a reward for him.
Yeah.
The state of Illinois had a reward for him. But the point that I'm trying to make is this. Whenever he went to court, he snitched some of the mafia out to get a shorter sentence.
Yep.
In other words, he made a deal with the state.
He made a deal with the devil.
As he was leaving the courtroom, they looked at him and said, "You'll regret this day, buddy." Did you know from then on out, he was concerned and worried about somebody coming and knocking on his door and blowing his what away?
Yeah.
It never did occur, but who's to say that they didn't think about it? Because he done about 4.5 years in the Missouri federal jail system up there in Missouri. And I remember driving all the way up there, me and Mama Lucy and my mama, and going up there and visiting with him. And he was scared to death somebody in the prison was going to wind up taking him out.
Yeah. There's a lot of gangs. Prison.
And I didn't know this, but my Uncle Charlie, before he got busted in all that, he had actually moved down by Pickwick, over pretty close to where Buford Pusser lived back over
Adamsville.
Yeah.
there, Adamsville, and him and Buford Pusser had a deal going to where they was fixing to open up a retail store and sell clothing out of it.
Would you believe I got to buy a Buford Pusser ball bat? Big stick. Hickory stick.
Walking tall.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is that the young boy, Shane, had a bad motorcycle wreck
Yeah, he's crippled.
and crippled him, and Buford Pusser actually come to his hospital bed a couple of different times towards visiting him before all that stuff went down with Buford. You know, they killed Buford, don't you?
Oh yeah.
And you know, that come right out directly out of Davidson County, out of the Capitol building. Towards going to take him out because they had hired him to clean up the county.
The Detroit boys come down here and got him out of Detroit.
You know, that tells you how dirty the politics are.
Yes, they're dirty.
They're
A lot of it is.
they're extremely dirty, ain't they?
Now, some of the small towns is not, but you get away and you get to a bigger town, yeah. It's all in who you know.
Well, how come is it that somebody like the sheriff over here in Gibson County can get caught with his hand in the cookie jar between him and his secretary and 2 or 3 other ones,
And they didn't get no
and
time.
and before it's all said and done with, didn't get a bit of time, and basically had to make what, $10,000 restitution and be on probation for like 5 years or something like that?
Got washed under the
Got washed under the
money.
table.
Money talks.
They take care of each other, don't they?
Money talks.
Corrupt birds of a feather flock together. Corrupt people take care of corrupt people, don't they?
Yeah.
But yet, no, me and you, I was told that he had over
But
a dozen charges,
But you know something?
major state charges.
Yeah.
What's going on now? It's almost dangerous here to get out it, you know.
Could you only imagine what is going on up there in Chicago right now? You know what it was like
I know.
in the 60s and the 70s up there,
50s.
or the
Oh, yeah.
50s.
I went up there.
Could you only imagine what's going on now up there with the money being tight
At
and
58.
everybody losing jobs and
It
COVID
was about 58 when I went up there.
and all the drugs and stuff going on? Could you
No,
only
you was
imagine?
up there in 57. Y'all went up there, you got married in 56, October.
Yeah, 56.
How old
I
was
born-
you
I
whenever
was
you got
born in
married?
57.
How old was you when you got married?
17. I was a young chicken.
So you eloped.
We eloped with the Mississippi.
She
Did
was
you?
16.
Corinth.
You went to Corinth, Mississippi and got married.
Only cost him,
Yeah,
only cost
She
him
turned
five.
17 after I was
You ought to
born.
be
Only
ashamed of
cost him
yourself.
five. Only cost him $5. That was cheap.
Yeah, but it was a trip all the way down there,
He got
wasn't
a deal.
it? So you was in Chicago in 56 waiting on tables.
No, she's waiting on me. She's pregnant with me.
Okay, well, when did you start waiting on tables at that fancy restaurant that you're talking about?
That was, I would say that was probably,
When Tammy went to school, she didn't work till then.
Is the restaurant still there by chance?
No.
I don't know. Just
Joy said it was gone.
Do you remember the name of the restaurant?
Stephen's Steakhouse.
Who?
Stephen's Steakhouse.
Stephen's Steaks House.
The Greeks.
Greeks. And it was over pretty close to O'Hara?
Yeah. It's
Yeah, it
about,
was in Elmhurst.
it's about as far from here as Rutherford, as where Old Airfield is.
Is Elmhurst the richest part of the area up there in Chicago?
No. Lake Forest.
It is.
That's where Al Capone's buried.
Is that up there pretty close to the Fox Lake and Round Lake up in that area?
No.
Is it over pretty close to Antioch?
Fox Lake and them are kind of inland.
Okay. Is it over in the
Well,
Antioch,
Lake Forest
Antioch
is over
district?
close to Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
It's a real uppity, you know.
Enough
Is
for
it is it north of the O'Hara or south of the O'Hara?
Be north.
north.
So that would be over in the Antioch area.
Yeah.
Well, see, guess what? We lived in a house in Antioch, Illinois, after leaving Round Lake, that supposedly Al Capone resided in.
Mhm.
And my uncle, whenever he'd come visit us, he had a cellar, 2 big silos and a milk barn and a big barn. And every time my uncle would come and visit us, he'd get the creeps. He'd say, "This has got to be the most creepiest place that I've ever been in my life."
You know,
And he would go down in that basement, and God only knows what went on down in that basement.
That's right. Or how many people got killed.
Shot, cut up.
That's right.
Yeah, they'd shoot them, kill them, cut them up, throw them in the darn Lake Michigan. Let the fish eat them.
They would.
Disappear.
That's how they got rid of their waste.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
But Antioch, Illinois, is just north of O'Hara Field, give or take, probably about 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe an hour at the very most, depending upon the traffic. So that's right up there in Al Capone. That's right up there in Al Capone's neighborhood, isn't it?
Yeah, the Lake Forest. Yeah.
Lake Forest.
And that, and then there's Oak Brook. Oak Brook is another high.
Is it possible that some of those people got the rewards during the time that they was doing what they was doing during the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they become wealthy off of
You
Off
never
of
know.
some of that stuff?
You never know.
because moonshine was a big business back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Did you know that they claim that Al Capone come down to Land Between the Lakes several different times towards visiting and doing business transactions over there by Golden Pond?
No. Moonshiners.
Uh-huh.
No doubt.
Uh-huh.
A lot of moonshiners up there in that area
It was back then.
back then.
And if a revenuer walked upon one of them, he was probably nabbed.
Yeah.
They probably wound up killing him and throwing him down in the Tennessee River somewhere, huh?
Well, that's very possible.
There was
I know,
a lot of
A lot of
illegitimacies
people,
going on back then.
They took people, black people, and they tied a rope around their neck, threw them out in the Mississippi River.
See, to this day, that's the reason why they don't want to talk about what went on up there in the Land Between the Lakes, is that they got too much to hide. They wound up trying to ruin my life up there because I spent too much time up there.
I know you used to Horn Beach. Black person didn't even go through the Horn Beach. They'd shoot him to kill him.
Same way Sidonian hop in.
Up in Mason Hall, Trimble.
Uh-huh. There's a place on Tennessee River over there just north of Camden, Tennessee. What's it called? Spring something.
Springville.
Springville?
That's where I was talking about trying to buy a place.
That used to be noted towards doing black people wrong.
You don't see no blacks up in there.
Well, did you know whenever the courthouse burnt in Weakley County, whenever it was rebuilt and they opened it back up in 1949, did you know that was one of the first things that they hung out on the pole was a Confederate flag?
Yeah. They kept one out there for a long time.
They was proud of their Southern heritage, wasn't they?
Yeah. That is a part of our heritage. I mean,
it is. It's part of our history, but it shouldn't be looked upon towards being bragging.
no.
It should be looked upon towards being a schooling. Towards, didn't you learn anything from that period, or didn't you learn anything from that era?
You learn history.
You live and learn.
You don't
go through a process of elimination.
You do not want to repeat
right
history.
Right. And I guess because of the influence that my great-grandfather had upon to my dad, I think I told you this, when my brother was involved in a motorcycle accident, the doctor took the whole family out in Memphis after they pulled the plug and told my dad, said, y'all gonna have to rush things up. We don't mean to be ugly. Y'all gonna have to rush things up because your son was an organ donor. And my father stopped him and said, well, let me ask you a question. Can you guarantee that my son's organs are going to be placed back into a white person's body? And the doctor stood there with his mouth open for a few minutes, according to my brother, and said, Mr. Jackson, I can't promise you that your son's organs will be placed back into an American person. He looked at the doctor and said, well, you ain't getting my son's organs then. Now that's prejudice.
Yeah.
That's a deep
that.
prejudice disease that was formigated from that area down there in Weakley County and Hopin, Obion County, and that lived with him to the day he died. But I'm going to tell you what happened to him the day that he was dying. Within 30 days before he was dying, he started having hallucinations, my brother said.
Yeah.
Because I had my two cousins down there helping him. And all of a sudden, he'd holler at David, get this black person, he'd call him, the N-word, get this person out of here. I don't want these black people up here no more. And he said that would happen sometimes 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow.
He was being haunted.
Mm-hmm.
God was haunting him because of the feelings that he had against black people. And he took that to his grave.
Well, you know what, though? My grandparents, that's the way my dad was raised.
So how do we break the
raised.
cycle? How do we break the cycle? The cycle has to be broke, and how come he didn't break it during his era?
We were brought up with it.
Yes, we was, but we was brought up in knowing that it was wrong. Now it wasn't quite as practiced here in the South like it was out in California, and Chicago, and New York, but we know that it was wrong to have that type of prejudice against somebody to the point that you ain't going to allow a white person's organs into a black person.
Now that
That's crazy.
Our only thing was we were taught whites and blacks don't mix.
Well,
Yeah.
do you remember? Do you remember whenever they had the segregation movement in the late '60s? Whenever they was burning all the buildings and all the schools, and y'all probably read about it or heard about it up there in Chicago.
Yeah, I went to
read
school.
all
I
about
remember
it.
going to school.
I was up there when it happened.
Really?
Yeah, we
They
were.
burning
I remember I went to
everything.
school in Kenton,
It was
first
bad.
grade, all white. The blacks went down to Black Bottom. That's where their school was.
Well, somebody
It
told
wasn't segregated then.
me that Sunnyside Cemetery has everybody
is,
on one
yeah.
side is black and everybody on the other side is white.
At one time, yes. It's still that way. But you can be buried on either side. All you got to do is buy a lot.
Now you can.
Yeah. But I mean, the other side is black. It's called West Side or something.
See,
Yeah, you can walk through right there, and there they are.
yeah.
Because that's where old Charlie White's buried.
Well, did they have any burning buildings and stuff going on in Chicago during that time?
There was buildings burnt
It was.
up there when it held.
Rioting going on?
Yeah. I remember we
Breaking
could see the
windows,
smoke.
anything.
Remember the big Democratic convention when they set fire to everything down there and everything was smoking?
Yeah,
We could see the smoke
you could.
from the loop.
It's 1,000 wonders.
and
Y'all
when-
lived through all that
And when they
and come
when-
down to
then
the
what's
south
his
and,
name?
and told it.
When what's his name got killed, Martin Luther King.
Yeah, that was after that.
I mean, there's people gathering up for.
Well, JFK got killed first,
Awful.
and then it wasn't few many years after that. What was it, 60, 64?
I remember I was
Was it a
in-
year
I
later
remember I
when
was
Martin,
in
whenever
school. I was
Martin
in
Luther King got
school.
killed in Memphis?
I was in school in Tupelo when Kennedy got killed. I remember I was in first grade. I remember when he got killed.
And,
I'm surprised
and
there
then-
wasn't a lot of rioting over that. Well, you know what?
And when they passed the civil rights law down there, the black people they were loading everybody they could up in a truck, and they were just driving all over the town, just
So let me
running
ask you a question.
running you off of the road.
So let me ask you a question. You see how they used to be, in which it was wrong towards segregating people out like that, but yet no, we're going to allow for illegal Haitians and illegal Mexicans and illegal everything in the world coming over the border
Mm-hmm.
and basically handing them a green card and saying, well, good luck. I mean, is that right?
Now they ought to send them all back.
But who's going to pay for the
It's-
bus fare
It's
or
like-
the airplane fare?
What they do is bring them over here so they
They are
get
causing a
killed.
burden into our system that our immigration laws did not persist of whenever they was written out. They're invading our land. Do you understand that?
Yeah,
I'll tell
They're
you-
bringing a burden
I'll
onto
tell you,
our
one-
country.
One of these days you're gonna be seeing some of them around here.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. And I'm not prejudiced against nobody as long as they do it and they do it legally. But to come over here as a bunch of wetbacks, you know what the terminology wetbacks means, right?
Yep.
Means you come in illegally.
right. Mm-hmm.
You come in with a wet back
Yeah. Crossing the river.
crossing the river.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not just Mexicans that do that. I mean, Cubans do it too down there in Florida.
We've got Cubans, we got Haitians coming in through Mexico. They're coming in
By the thousands.
Guatemala. They're coming in from the Middle East into Mexico and crossing the border.
Even-
How about all them people that come from Afghanistan
That's
that
what
we
I'm
don't
talking
know
about.
that
I
got
said the Middle
documented
East. That's what I'm
properly?
talking about the Middle
We
East.
can have terrorists right here.
Well,
Bin Laden bunch right here.
But you stop and think about it, all the different kinds of diseases that you're going to get.
We're bound to be living in the last days, don't y'all think? This type of stuff going on because our ancestors would not have put up with this. You know what?
No.
You know, whenever
No.
Pearl Harbor got attacked, whenever Pearl Harbor got attacked, they immediately shut down all the borders to make sure that they knew what kind of footing that they had, and they immediately started rounding up people that they thought was associated with that country. You remember
Right,
what they
yeah.
done?
Mhm.
How come we didn't do the same thing during 9/11?
Yeah.
We didn't shut down nothing, did we?
No. They were still running loose.
I think we've turned into a bunch of idiots over here.
up north.
We don't no longer have the backbone.
North
And I realize going too far one way is just as bad as is not going far enough the other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you can be too extreme.
See, up north they were tearing up parks and burning them and going downtown Chicago.
Now you got 10, 11, 12-year-old kids that's killing adults because they know that they can stand underneath the immigration laws towards them not being prosecuted as they would be an adult. I think the law needs to be declined and make the accountability at the age of 16, at least 16, maybe even 15, because you know good and well they know what they're doing.
Yes, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing when they're 12.
Sure they do.
Because they know I'm underage. I'm a kid.
And I can get away with this. I won't spend but a
They
couple,
lock me up
but I'll spend a
little
couple
bit,
months
and
or
then
a
I'll be
couple
out.
years in the nut house or whatever,
Yeah.
and then I'll be a free person. I can go on about my life. I think the governor may have went a little bit too far pertaining to the abortion reproduction rights down there in Texas, but at the same time, I also look at that and say, well, you know what? Something had to be done because some of these whores out here has sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 abortions a year. A year. They're killing kids left and right a
What?
year.
They're using birth control.
They don't want it. The abortions is birth control today.
Then they use their birth control.
Abortions is birth control.
No,
That's the
abortion's
part
murder.
You had the murder and shit.
But they don't have no conscience at all towards what that they have done to that unborn baby.
No.
I tried to get my blitz down from that tractor. I got it there back up. But it's war just about. Pretty soon, this winter, they'll finish it off.
What are we gonna do with all these immigrants coming over the border?
Send them back to hell with a bomb. That's all I know. I know it sounds harsh, but hell, you can't open the doors for the problems of the world. They dropped up on you because everybody's gonna take a big old shit, and then you're gonna be the asshole of the world, you know?
Well, I've got something biblical to use against it. The Bible says, do not throw your pearls before the swine. The pearls represent something good and the swine represents something bad. Hogs and swine, pigs, has always been looked upon in the biblical sense towards being defiled. Anything with a split hoof is supposed to be defiled,
Yeah.
according to the Jewish practices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But whenever you're going out of your way to do stuff for corrupt, unthankful, polluted people, there has to be some sort of a line, or
I gotta go down and check on Danny.
there has to be some sort of line drawn in the sand towards how far that a Christian is supposed to go whenever it comes to bending over backwards for all these people.
I'm gonna get one of them cold drinks from me.
I think we're almost out.
Well, I was gonna get one of them sun kids.
You know what I'm saying?
Because I don't drink your last Dr. Peppers and stuff.
In other words, God didn't intend for us to be a whipping post or somebody's floor mat. And that's exactly what they're doing by opening up the borders the way that they're doing towards letting everything in the world come over here. I got a thing the other day from Donald Trump asking me if I felt like that he should get reelected and start back the wall again.
Well,
Yes.
they gotta take care of that
Close it
problem
up.
down there. It needs to be taken care of
He
immediately.
closed the borders up and he stopped them from coming in. They had to go through
Well,
a
do we
process.
have to elect Donald Trump to get that done?
Basically, I think, yeah.
How come we can't get it done through the Biden administration?
Because Democrats want open borders. Canada says no, their borders are closed.
Did you know that this country is the only country that you can come over here to this country with big, deep pockets as far as having money, and you can buy up any piece of real estate as long as they'll sell it to you, you can buy it?
Yeah.
You try to do that in Russia, or you try to do that in China, or some of these other countries. They ain't gonna let you come over there if you're not a citizen to that country and go over there and buy a bunch of property.
How many Dr. Peppers is in there?
Well, I didn't look. I just grabbed the sun kids.
You know why they're not gonna do it? It's because they know that that's a
Y'all need something to drink? You need one?
we're good.
You want Jerry?
We're good.
Okay.
We're all right. But they're not going to allow for that because they realize that they're selling their culture out. They're selling their integrity out.
I gotta go see. Danny down here fishing.
You know what I'm saying? They're not going to allow for you to go over in Russia and buy up a bunch of property if you're not a citizen of Russia.
Yeah.
Now you can denounce your
You
citizenship.
can go to Korea and an American cannot buy property.
You can denounce your citizenship and go to Russia and become a Russian,
Yeah.
providing that they'll let you become a Russian.
Yeah.
And then if you've got deep pockets, you can go to buying and selling. But even at that, they're still going to control you,
Yeah. I know
aren't they?
Sherry's son just came back from South Korea. He was a professor there. He taught at the university for
Okay.
years. And he married a Korean girl.
Okay.
And they were going to have a baby.
So that gave him a ticket
No.
by marrying that Korean girl.
No.
Yes, it did.
No, he didn't. He wasn't allowed to own any property. They had an apartment. He could never be a citizen of South Korea, nor could the child ever be a Korean citizen because he's half American. Koreans are kind of strict on that pure blood thing.
Well, was he willing to denounce his citizenship to become a Korean?
Yeah. Nope. So, you know what? They packed up and they moved back here. And he's in Nashville. And she's having the baby here. And the baby will be a U.S. citizen. And she's applied for citizenship. His wife. He's teaching.
Wasn't it Brezhnev that said that we'll take the American people over and never fire a shot? Their governments, even though their governments is messed up pertaining to them being communist-controlled governments, they was smart enough going all the way back to the 40s and the 50s and realizing where our weakness was towards us being taken over from the inside out. Because look at this, listen to this theory, okay? You let 1 million Mexicans come in here today, all right? Those 1 million Mexicans are going to have children.
Yeah, lots of them.
And children's children. So 5 years from now, instead of you having 1 million, now you got 5 million.
You're going to have 5 million more.
Yeah, you're going to have millions upon top of millions. Well, if you get enough of them over here in the country and they side up with one another, the next thing you know, they can vote us out of our own council, out of our own administrations.
That's
They
right.
can vote us out and vote them in.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You're
They can take us over and never fire a
you're
shot.
shit out of luck.
If you let enough of them over here. So the Russians, the North Koreans, all them other people, they've got a practical point towards not allowing for just any and everything to come over their borders, don't they?
Mm-mm. No,
Huh?
you don't. No, you don't.
They got a
Yeah.
reasoning behind being stiff-necked like that, don't
They
they?
are 100% pure. Yeah, used to, like during the Korean War, if a child was born and his father was an American soldier, they'd kill him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really? Was that during the Korean
during
War?
the Korean War.
I didn't know that. You know, that's a forgotten war. You know what? You don't hear too many people that's ever really talk about the Korean War much.
It was an ugly war.
And you know what? You worry about what you have and what you worked hard for. And then all of a sudden, somebody like these people show up here in our Union City or anybody here.
Show up in your backyard. Or show up in your bank, take over, hack into your system and take your system over. Or vote you out. We're living in the last days. We gotta be. This is unjustfulness that's going on. And our ancestors are probably rolling around in their graves towards wondering what the hell has happened to this generation
Yeah,
that's
sometimes you
basically
wonder if
giving the bank away, giving the farm away.
And you also think about maybe you need to get out here and build you a big old dam or cellar. Nobody knows where you're at.
Be a prepper,
Yeah.
go underground.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of that goes on out there in Colorado,
Yeah.
up there in them,
Oh, yeah.
up there in them
up
Rocky
there in the
Mountains.
mountains. Yeah.
Yeah, you got people up there that's done hunkered down and dug in, that's just waiting for the sky to fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, you got a whole lot more property out there where you can hide in too.
What is it we saw PlayStation come across the earth the other night?
No, you didn't.
No, we saw the space station.
Space.
You
All right.
did.
Yeah, we come across. I said, there we go. Now we got a clear
Yeah,
view
they
and
let
it's
you know what
shined
kind
up real pretty.
Really?
It was on the news when you be out there to watch it.
I didn't see it.
Well, we did. We saw the time. What time we had to be out there at? It came across at 7:58. It started over here.
Well, what do you think about taking people up in space that ain't professional astronauts, regular civilians? I mean, if you got the money to pay for it, you go up there and just have a leisure ride. I guess go on a cruise.
You can do anything.
Ain't that something?
I don't think I'd want to go on a cruise. I'm afraid something stupid is going to happen. You wouldn't know how to handle yourself. I couldn't.
Of course, that can happen right here on. I mean, we don't have no guarantees no more of anything. I mean, you can get in your automobile and wind up in a massive car
What do
accident.
you think about that shooter down in Collierville?
My son was telling me about that, and that was
Killed
over.
one and shot 13.
Yeah.
They're in the hospital.
Did that make the national news?
Yes.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
NBC, CBS.
I was watching NBC
Really?
Paducah.
According to my son, the guy just had a mediocre job, just barely making a little bit over minimum wage,
Yeah.
and he lost his job and just went ballistic. According to what my son was saying. See, my son his mother lives down there at the Collierville area. That's just right outside of Germantown.
Yeah. Julie.
Julie.
Hello.
Hi guys.
Hey.